Hello, this is Anna, Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives, the morning edition. I up really early this morning. I couldn't sleep. I went outside yesterday actually, and I never go outside. I almost never leave my apartment. And whenever I do, especially when I go through a span, there is this really, really jarring perspective of the world that I see. I am so high into my head. I am so deep into metaphysics that my children, my home environment revolves around this dance that the universe does. And when people talk about grounding, there is what six perspectives refer to as grounding, which is bring yourself back down to earth. And I grew up being told that I had my head in the clouds. A bunch of fourth perspectives told me that. Isn't it funny being told that you're not down to earth by a bunch of people who live in the Matrix? Oh, irony, you sweet bitch. And I live between this. I am a musician first. I cannot tell you enough how much I am a musician first. That I am a storyteller through song. And that's where all of this started, was just, I was 4 and I wanted to play the piano. And I remember laying in my bed when I was a child for years, listening to this rhythmic. I would just lay there and listen to this sound of this constant tapping, consistent tapping with this occasional ping. And I listened to that for years. I would lie awake at night listening to that tapping. It took me about 4 months to realize that it was the clicking ticking clock on the other side of the wall of my bedroom wall. And that the ping was the minute hand moving every minute. And I could hear it. And I couldn't go to sleep without it at times. I had to listen to it. I had to listen for it. I remember once my parents painted that wall and they had to take the clock down. I remember its absence because I loved it that much. And I have done hierarchical education my whole life, where you learn a subject, you max it out, you master it, and then you move on to the next. You master it, and then you move on to the next, and you master it. And I've done that my whole life. This last one was just psychology. And now I'm done with it. I'm really done with it. I'm like, okay, I'm done with it now. Let's move on to the next one. And now I'm moving into mathematics and physics. And I'm excited. I haven't moved on to a new subject in a while. Psychology was annoying because it wasn't done. Psychology was the one subject where I'm like, what is this garbage? What have you done? There's nothing. It was disorganized and chaos. So I fixed it and then I moved on. And it's really what it feels like, is I fixed psychology. And it's like, all right, now that I've fixed psychology, let's move on to the next topic. And it undoubtedly required the most of my studies. Everything else was, like I said, already done. Everything else in the world was already mastered. Now psychology. And everything moves with a frequency. People talk about energy, and they know it's a frequency. And there's an ebb and a flow to it, exactly like the waves of the ocean. And some of us can feel it. Some of us really can feel it. And some of us can feel so many multiple frequencies that it hurts, because we are music. We're not just stories. We're mathematical musical stories. I have seen physics in everything all of my life. I used to joke, much to my demise, about how God was just physics. And I went on my existential adventures. I dove into the world of music, dance, stage, theater, and then I pulled into the world of composition and writing. And then I walked into the world of philosophy and psychology and geometry. And I fell so much in love with architecture. I studied architecture for years. Oh my God, did I love architecture. My partner would often say to me, how? He was fascinated by it. And I was like, it's geometry in real life. How can you not love it? It's geometry in real life. It's not every day that they make the abstract concrete. And I'm fascinated with geometry. I'm fascinated with numbers, with math, but not numbers in general. I'm fascinated at how it all fits. And I left my apartment yesterday to go to the post office, and I could just see everybody moving. And there's this concept of, well, compliments of Forrest Gump voicing, are we all here like a feather in the wind that just drifts? Or do we have a destiny? You do know that's the whole purpose of the feather, right? Drifting in the wind without purpose, and then being forced to sit in a book for a lifetime while you go through a man's story. And then the feather's released again at the end. It's absolutely beautiful, very poetic. And there is something terrifying about not knowing how much you are at the mercy of an unknown being. You have no explanation. You're a second perspective. So you sacrifice people to appease the gods. That is a second person perspective mentality. If you leave the second perspectives alone and they get scared, they will go back to human sacrifice to appease gods. They haven't evolved. That's the kind of shit that I see in the world. That the only reason why they don't is because the fourth perspectives are in charge telling them not to. Because the law books tell them not to. Isn't that funny? I see the world real differently. And I've been really quiet about it my whole life. And I wrote a letter to my partner last night, and he told me about the things in his life that And I realized in that moment that we are both in cocoons. We are both working on our jobs and our careers, and we are both in the resourceful stage, that he's going through the 12 stages of growth, that he's healing, and that the journey that we are both on has to be done separately. And I went back and forth many times, especially early on, going, if he's just a friend, abandon this thing, go, it's not worth it. Who would ever do this for a friend? Now for a life partner, oh, it's a different story. It's an entirely different story. And it was very much I have to go find myself. And I went through my life. I will just say it. Every time I tried to leave that man, I had this screaming thing that just tore me apart. And it was so excruciating. And I'm like, okay, I'll stay. And I found this beautiful place where the frequency doesn't hurt. The frequency doesn't hurt where I'm standing in life. And he is an undefined, but he's not. He's cooking, and so am I. And it's the first time we're unstuck in a year. We literally was in this, it was like we were at this juxtaposition where neither one of us could move, neither one of us could pull apart. So we were just standing there with this magnificent cognitive dissonance between us, and it was excruciating for both of us. And we're like, something's got to give. What do we do? And every time we try to pull away, it would scream at us. So we would come together and it would just scream at us. So neither one of us would move. It was literally just both of us standing there. And I know now what it was. We both needed to grow. We were both unaligned to our own truths. So we both stopped focusing on each other, stopped moving away from each other because that hurt. And we worked on ourselves. And we were both standing exactly where we both needed to stand. Because every time we moved away, oh my God, the pain would quadruple. So we stood, we're like, okay, neither one of us move. Now what do we do? Break it down. This was a personal problem with our own frequency, so we did. The pain is gone. There's a calm now. We don't feel stuck anymore. We don't feel like we're moving forward either, but we are. It's individual. We're side by side. And it's like, well, I'm going to just tell you right here, spoiler alert. So there's a frequency that you have, and there is a vibrational frequency on the planet Earth. And that is the place that calls to you. It's the part of your heart that says, when I die, this is where I'm going to be. Don't wait, just go there now, because that's where you need to be. Mine was New York City. Mine was this place. And it was so funny. Last night when I was out there, I was thinking, I will never move to Ireland. It's too white. I will never move to Ireland. It's not diverse enough. I can't do it. Maybe Dublin, but I can't leave New York City food. I can't leave behind New York City pizza. I need to be able to walk down the street and hear all of the cultures at the same time. And I realized I cannot and never will live in Ireland. I just can't imagine. I need the diversity. And I don't think, maybe Dublin would give me the diversity I'm looking for. But I realize that this is the frequency that I'm at. And then you have somebody who you stand at this point on this in this magnetic field, who is basically your parallel bar. And your lives aren't going to, you're connected, but And you don't have to be like merged, but you're connected. There's a reason. And you're both on the same frequency because you are so close to the same mathematical frequency that you're almost identical in frequency. You are literally what I'm going to call a frequency twin. That's it. It is a frequency twin. And your frequency twin is called to the exact same place you are. For he and I, it's Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn, close enough for now. For now. But he's my frequency twin. We are both so mathematically aligned to the same tune that every aspect of our lives matched. But neither one of us was matched to our own self. We were a union divided. So we cocooned ourselves. He cocooned himself, I cocooned myself. But nothing really changed. And these last 2 weeks, basically when I announced that I had narcissism, it was an immediate, we need to separate. Not separate, but just, and we did. And I love this because, yes, it's, and I've told so many people this. You really want to fix your relationship, break up. You really want to fix your relationship, break up. Because then you'll stop thinking about the relationship and you'll start focusing on yourself, which is really what needs to happen. And I had the moment this morning where I was thinking, I was laying in bed and I was going over it again. And I'm like, if we're unstuck, I'm in my frequency. I'm done cooking. I'm good. He's still got some cooking. And I felt the pull last night. I'm like, I need to reach out to him. So I did. I sent him a letter. He sent me one back. And I sent him another one. And I just had this very Mufasa moment, or this Rafiki moment of, it's just time. It was wonderful. It's just time. And I could feel it. Like the frequency said, okay, now, start being vulnerable with him. Okay, you're so bossy. And she really is bossy. So I just opened up and I started to be vulnerable. I shared with him my truths. And it felt right and it felt good and it brought me joy. And I went, all right. And I woke up this morning and I thought, and I finally was able to articulate what is wrong. I have memory of him as person A, and I have me as person B, and I have this undefined wisdom love that we're going to call C. And I don't even know what I want. This is where it gets difficult because AB was awesome, but AB had problems and then it was really icky. Now it's A.2 and B.2. And now we've got this wisdom love C. And I don't have any information to plug in there for this formula to make any sense. It is an undefined because I have no experience yet. I do not know. And same thing with myself. I don't know. And then I've got this new type of Pythagoras love, wisdom love. And I'm going, I don't know. There's just too many variables that are undefined right now. And that's it. These are undefined variables. That's what I've got before me. And I went, well, if I've got a bunch of undefined variables, now's the time to just pull the plug and say, hey, see you later. I will never talk to you again. That's fantastic. Because if he's just a friend, then why not? Like, really, what's the point? Really, as far as friendships go, none of this is worth it. So I immediately started to go toward that concept again. And it's the first time in months that the universe just finally gave me this big, screeching, painful, no, you don't. You're staying right there. And I'm like, oh, now you speak up. And then I understood that he's going to be. He's going to be. We're just not done cooking yet. We are in the journey to the destination, and we're just not at the destination yet. And we met prematurely. We had to. And I don't know when I just don't know. And yesterday when I was walking outside, I saw everyone moving. And the city has a rhythm. Every city has a rhythm. In fact, it's my dream to go to every city in the world just to learn each rhythm of every city so I can compare it to the rhythm of New York. Because New York City has a rhythm. Every city has a rhythm. I don't know the rhythm of the other cities. I want to know the rhythms of in fact, that is how you now tell if somebody's not from here, is they can't find the rhythm. That's how you know a tourist from everybody else is they're off rhythm. New Yorkers have the rhythm. The longer you're here, the longer you know the rhythm. People who are tourists or if you don't know the rhythm, you're off. You're a tourist because you don't have the frequency. And that's really what this keeps coming down to is the mathematics. And then I find out in all of this journey and everything that I've studied, I'm going forward and I get to this point where I'm going, all right, we're on a clock. It was wonderful. It was like 3-4 days ago. And I was studying physics. I was studying geometry and I was starting to look into astronomy. And I know what it was. I was looking at astrology. I wanted to understand Plato's astrology. I wanted to understand the secrets of divination and what the hell that was. It lasted 2 days. It was 2 days. This is how it went. On day 1, I'm like, all right, what is this? And I tracked it all back. I'm like, all right, I see it now. And I mapped it all out, like it made sense. I understood all of it. It made sense. And then on day 2, it was this sudden run a clock. You have planets that are moving at a set, almost annual, an annual precise time period. Other parts of this clock that are moving by a day. The clock is not designed around them. They are the clock. Our clock is just our days, our calendars is them. Those are not man-made things. Those are just maps. I can't emphasize that to you enough. Our calendar and our clock, our sundials, are not man-made things. Those are natural. We just mapped them out. They are common man maps for the big clock. And when we talk about time, we're talking about coordinates, a location from one particular point of relativity to our current present position, based upon also the correlation of the clock. The clock is moving away from this point of relativity. And we happen to be one of the peoples on the cogs of said clock. It's all really fucking cool. So now I'm going, well, son of a fucking bitch. This whole thing is just math and physics. This whole fucking thing is just math and physics. It's music. It moves with a frequency. It moves with a rhythm. There are scales and there are chords. There are frequencies. And there is energy. Music is energy. That's all. Light is energy. It is the consequence of the frequencies. That's all it is. When you dance. But we are our own music. Our frequency is our emotions. But we are conscious, so we can control ours. But we're just batteries because we're energy. Psychology is really the study of the physics and the energy inside the human mind. It's extraordinary. And it follows the same rhythm, the same pattern, the same movement as physics and mathematics. Identical. Extraordinary. And suddenly I'm looking at Plato's astrology and I'm going, mathematical predictability. On a beat, on a count of 12, or 4/4 time. 3 measures, or 4 measures of waltz time. It's still 12. We are a dance. We are music. And some of us are really, really sensitive to the frequency in the dance. That's why people see numbers all over. Because we are math. The whole goddamn thing is just math and physics and energy. Over and over again. Math, physics, and energy. Over and over again. On every level. And we revolve around story, which is metric, rhythm, mathematic, timing. It's a pulse. Even our heartbeats. 60 minutes, 60 seconds, 60 beats. That isn't us. That's nature. Because nature moves by 12. Because she has a dance pentatonic meter. It just keeps going around and around and around. And I used the wrong word there. It's not pentatonic. Pentatonic is a 5 meter. It's the 12 meter. Heptameter, monometer, octameter, diameter, tetrameter, pentameter. Pentameter is 5. It's fascinating. That's why I love poetry so much. That's why I love Poe so much. Poe, oh my God. His metrics are fucking gorgeous. Poe is absolutely my favorite poet. His metrics are fucking breathtaking. So I stepped outside yesterday and I just had this moment of God is math and physics, which is just pure predictability. That's how divination works. That's how astrology works. It's just mathematical metric. It's predictable because it's a clock, which is why and how the seasons are predictable. It's why and how current events are predictable. It's why and how events through the ages are predictable. And suddenly the whole, divination and astrology went, it's just a mathematical formula of predictability. Yeah, it died that day. My interest and impressing, like, what is this? I found the mystery. Oh, it's just mathematical metric predictability of a clock. Wow, that's so anticlimactic. And you've got a bunch of idiotic second perspectives who are gushing over a clock. So it was thus that my interests died. The reason why anyone would be interested in that was to control their power, which is exactly what Rome did with it. And history does repeat itself because this is a fucking clock we're living on. It's like going, oh, wow, 2:00 happened today. It will happen tomorrow too, twice. That's the kind of shit we're talking about here. So I'm now looking at it going, wow, suddenly astrology is not. Wow, yeah. And the people who are involved in that usually spend more time and more focus on the astrology than actually fixing their lives. And the more I fixed my life, the less interested in the astrology I was. And it was extraordinary. The less focused I was on fixing my life, the more focused I was on the astrology. It's a crutch, it's a cripple. And once I realized that, once I realized I was spending more time tuning into what the cards said, what the horoscope said, I was spending less time focusing on the work I actually needed to focus on. So once you fix yourself, you don't need any of that stuff because you talk directly to the source. So, and the source is just math and physics. And some people are really, really tuned into the physics. Some people are really tuned into the frequency. The more educated you get, the more you really feel and see it. And I love how it starts off with religion from that second perspective, and then it shifts into that spirituality, and then it just sits, okay, everything's now physics. And I'm almost going, what's beyond that? What's beyond that? I have no idea. Probably more physics. I'm going to just assume it's going to be more physics. But it's this, how do I explain it? The calm in me immediately settled. It was suddenly, oh, we're not at the mercy of this crazed madman. So we're suddenly not at the mercy of this vengeful, emotional, hormonal God who may or may not, on a jealous whim, annihilate us with a flood. We are at the mercy of math and physics. Fortunately for me and a lot of people out there, we know the laws of math and physics. So we have internalized all the events of math and physics, and we've taken it personally. Oh, math and physics says it's time that we suffer this massive cataclysmic event. I must have done something wrong to fuck up and ignite the anger of this God. Really? You think you're so important that God's going to punish you because you have somehow ruffled his feathers? But math and physics don't do that. Math and physics is just clicking away on its time schedule, shifting and doing what it does with the universe. And you are along for the ride. And you can step into the math and the physics and find the song, find the frequency, and shift and move with it. And just participate in the dance. And I feel like that's really what we're heading toward. Is people figuring this shit out and we all going, oh, I'm gonna dance with the universe instead. Instead of internalizing every movement of mathematics, I'm going to instead find the frequency and dance with the gods. The gods. Dance with the math and the physics. Because we in ourselves are math and physics. And finding your frequency is like, oh, it is home. It is exactly like going home. Everything is peaceful. Everything is calm, always. Nothing ever upsets. You just shift and you moved and you're part of this dance. And it's extraordinary. And you can just keep doing what you do that you love. And this is the best part. This is where I get into manifestation, because manifestation is so much fun now. Because it's a whole nother level of like, oh, this is awesome. Because I can see the psychology now in manifestation. I can see the physics in manifestation. And I'm going, oh, this is such a fun little mathematical thing. So for manifestation, you are basically removing the belief system out of your cognitive core. So you desire, and then you value ethically, and then you manifest whatever reality that you want. The manifestation is just your imagination. Now, without the fancy word manifestation, we've already been doing this. We do this as children when you play at something. I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. So you play at being a doctor while you're manifesting. Children manifest all the time. And what you're really doing is communicating to the universe what your mathematics is going to be, what your dance is. This is really what it is. It is I have composed a play, dear mathematician and physicist, and my play is entitled Me. Well, that's the name of all of our plays, but Me. And it's choreographed dance all by me. And you hand the script over to the director, math and physics, and you do it. And because you're all in sync on the same frequency and you're all talking on the same frequency, information uploaded, it makes its adjustments because you have now on a frequency aligned with their frequency and you've changed your frequency. It's like you're on a train track, and by handing the script over to the physics, the engineer, you've switched the tracks, so you're going to go from this direction over to this direction. Now you're already going down this track, so they know all they have to do is flip a single switch to switch the tracks over, and it's done. That's manifestation when you're in the frequency. When you're not in the frequency, it's a whole lot of spiritual bullshit and nightmare with a whole lot of how can I manipulate the frequency. So, but you've got to be viable. You've got to be willing to adjust and move within their frequency because their law. And you have your physics laws, which means you can only move within a certain confined amount of space, time, dimension. So you might put down something that says, this is what I want. Here, this is the dimension that I'm going to, time. You hand the dimension over to the universe, to physics and math. And it's already moving. It's already shifting. Now you just have your heading. And now you start doing whatever it is you need to do from your point where you need to be doing everything. And you're shifting, but now you're focused on shifting the tracks for yourself. It's absolutely this gorgeous dance. We're all dancing. And it's just so beautiful. And the only pain that exists in this world is the pain of resistance. Can you turn that light on, please? Thank you. Yeah. Is the pain. Thank you so much. Wow, light. No, I like that light. It's a soft orange. Thank you. I love the frequency. So the only pain that exists is the pain of resistance and the pain of dissonance. There! I really should have said that a lot sooner. That's really it. It's the pain of resistance. And we have terms for this in physics, by the way. When you have something that's not allowing energy to flow in the current, it's called a resistor. It's actually a thing, you know. And it's so funny watching you have the psychologist going, you need to not resist that. And you've got second perspectives. Oh, you're resisting the energy and the will of the universe. You've got Buddhists going, oh, you need to learn to accept. And the physicist is going, yeah. So when you have a resistor that is pushing against the physics and not allowing the energy to flow properly, it's going to cause a lot of backup of the energy. And now you've got something that stores the energy. And I'm going, yeah, this is totally all the same thing. It's really fucking cool. By the way, I'm probably very soon, most likely, going to be doing a lot of breaking down psychology in those examples where it's all, this is what the physicist says, this is what the psychologist says, this is what the second perspective says. Because once you start to see how you're all talking and how you're all saying physics, it's hilarious. It's like we're just a bunch of batteries. You do know that, right? We are literally sentient batteries. We are sentient batteries. Learn how a battery works and you're fine. Literally, this is it. Like I'm sitting here going, and this is why psychology was so easy for me. By the way, what physicist has studied psychology? What psychologist has studied physics? They don't. They don't. Had they, well, they wouldn't have gotten really far because the psychology that's out there is garbage. But if a physicist were to study psychology, a physicist would go, okay, this is just physics. We're batteries. Yes, we are batteries. Yes, we are sentient batteries. And the reason why people can't figure psychology out is because psychologists don't know physics. Psychologists needs to know, well, they would know this if they studied philosophy, because philosophy is all the subjects. You need to study physics. If you want to be a psychologist, you need to study physics and psychology. You really need to study, but I wouldn't study psychology that they teach you in the text because that's garbage. I would just study logic. So it would be logic and physics. Logic and physics is what you need. Logic and physics. But you also need imagination so you can figure this shit out, because if you don't have imagination, you're not going to figure anything out. You're just going to repeat a bunch of textbook shit without understanding any of it. So you really need imagination in here. You really, really need that. So that's like the cocktail. You really want to be a physicist. You really want to be a psychologist. The two of them are like hand in hand. You're identical. It's hilarious to me. So we are just sentient batteries. So once you understand how a battery works and you understand that we're just sentient batteries, a lot makes sense. So the only two pain there is there's resistance and then there's dissonance. And that is literally the only pain there is. Dissonance is a harmonic term in musical theory. Frequency, now we're back to physics again. Did we ever leave physics? Where it explains basically the discord of two frequencies that clash because they're not on the same frequency. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And that's really when you're looking for your partner, you're looking for your frequency twin. But no one's calling it that. They're all calling it soulmates. They're all calling, and I'm like, you mean your frequency twin? You're looking for somebody who's on the same frequency with you, but they are so fucking on the same frequency with you. Here's a clue: if you are in Y and they live in B, and neither one of you are wanting to move, there is a really good chance that you guys are matched up wrong. Because when you find your frequency twin, you're in the same place, and you both are passionate and excited about being in that place. Like that is because the land also has a frequency. It's called an electromagnetic field. Now, this is the part that I can't figure out. Are we the cause of the electromagnetic field? That's what I'm currently studying is, did we cause it? Or are we just a separate entity of it and it just happens to be here? Because an electromagnetic field exists because there is something that's making it occur. There's an accumulation of energy. And when you have the accumulation of energy, it all starts to pool together in an energy pool. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. Are we creating it from the energy that we're putting out with our emotions? Think of it this way. Friction creates energy. And frequency, well, frequency is energy. Yeah, friction creates energy. So if you have two sticks and you're rubbing them together, that friction is going to result in energy, which leads to fire. And the fire is the consequence of the compounded energy, the condensed energy. And whenever we have emotions, we are vomiting massive amounts of energy. Emotions and energy are the same thing. I cannot explain that enough. Emotions and energy are the same thing. By the way, I study classical physics, and then my interest is energy, magnetic, electromagnetic, polarized. It's all magnetic that I'm listing right now. Electrical, energy, magnetic, and dimension theory. That is my area of physics. That's my forte. I'm not sure what I think of quantum physics. It's like, yeah, I'll get to it. Maybe I'll probably get to it, but it really, that's not what I'm interested in. Something about it tells me that's not the right direction for me. My right direction is electrical. Yeah, Tesla and I are going to have a relationship. I feel that one coming. Like, I know this. Tesla and I are like this. I can feel it. And so there's electric, there's magnetic, and energy. Those are my three. And then dimension theory, of course. So those are my fortes in physics. So when I'm talking physics, that is what I'm talking about. Because when you talk about physics, it's vast. And it's interesting because I was reading something the other day and they were breaking down physics into the categories. And this is interesting. When you get into modern physics, they're like modern physics completely contradicts classic physics, and none of the laws of classic physics apply to modern physics. Oh, Occam's razor. They're different subjects. So there's a big element that's missing between point A and point B. You're comparing apples and oranges. Because if it's the same subject, then it would be ladder learning. It would be stacked. The fact that it completely dissolves and falls apart, you are missing a subject. There is a subject that is missing between point A and point B, which is why they're not aligning, which is why they're breaking down. Or there's a no, that's it. Even if I were to say that there's a rate of change, let's put some calculus between the two of them. If there's a rate of change, see, now I really want to dive into this. Now I'm like, yes, let's take a look at this. Okay, so now I'm curious. Now I'm like, this fascinates me. I love anomalies. Like, you can't do this. That doesn't make sense to me. That's a red flag. Now, it's a different subject. It's really a different subject. And I'm going, that's not. There's something else there. You guys need to relabel that because there is something wrong with that. If you can't use classic physics with quantum mechanics, with quantum physics, with modern physics, that's not, if it's not a duck, if it doesn't quack like a duck, it's not a, if it doesn't look like a duck, if it doesn't sound like a duck, it's not a duck. And classic physics applies on so many levels that's over 8,000 years old. These laws, classic physics is fucking solid. And I'm looking at it, and this is interesting. The people who hate on Aristotle are modern physicists. Interesting. Because Aristotle does classic physics. And he is compatible with Newton's laws of physics. Newton and Aristotle are like, it's modern physics, but I don't think it's physics. I think that's a completely different subjects X, which is why they've had to create their own code for it, their own everything for it, is because it doesn't apply. This is fascinating to me. Oh yes, like I'm going to be a physicist. I know this. This has been like my dream for decades. I want to be a physicist. So I'm very excited about this. I don't know if I'll ever get like deep into chemistry. I say this, but I have a book on my shelf called How Baking Works. And my partner calls me a cookie scientist because I got really mad at cookies one day. So I broke down the science of cookies, which is chemistry, and I made 72 batches in a day because I made those my little bitch. So now I have my own cookie recipes. I make my own cookie recipes. It's one of my dreams to have my own cookie shop in Manhattan where it's my cookie recipes with my hot chocolate recipe and my little breads. No, really, this is what I want. But it's such a little, I just want it, but I don't want to run it. So I will probably just invest. I will find somebody who wants to do this. And I'm like, I will invest. You can run it. Here's my recipes. Here's my cocoa recipe. Go do it. Because my cookies are literally one of a kind. I have about 5 different recipes. I love my cookie recipes. So I sit there going, I'm going to never dabble in chemistry, but I already have. And I've got my cookie recipes to show for it. So I don't know. I don't know. But I'm really, I don't know. I'm looking at physics and I'm looking at how it's all just coming together in this conglomerate. And I'm really loving the world I'm in right now. I was watching something the other day. It was Stranger Things. I'm watching Stranger Things right now. And this is only like my 5th watch through. Like I'm at a point, I love Stranger Things so much. I love it so much. Where it's background noise at this point, where I'll knit and I'll read Dumas. And while I'm reading Dumas, I'll have it on in the background. And I just love the sound of Stranger Things playing. It's probably the 1980s nostalgia. And I was never a mall rat, but by God, I wanted to be. So watching the mall rat episodes, I'm going, I'm living vicariously through them. And we're not even talking about the epic storytelling or there's so much. I love it. I'm in season 4, I think. Yes. Yes. No, I'm in season 3. I really don't know where I am. I'm at season 3. No, I don't know. It's when Hopper just told Mike that his grandma died. Or there's something wrong with your grandma to get Mike out of the house. That's where I'm at. Bob just died. He just died in the last season, and now I'm in the next one. So I think I'm in season 3. Maybe, I can't remember. But I love watching Stranger Things. And I'm sitting here like, oh, he's such a fourth perspective. He's like such a fourth perspective. And he's asking Winona Ryder for help. And that's the other thing. Winona Ryder and I grew up watching her. Like I was there with Beetlejuice. I love Winona Ryder. And he's asking her for parenting advice. And she's like, and I know the psychology. He's like, I don't like it. I don't think they're just kissing. I just can't stand the two of them. They spend so much time together. And I'm like, somebody needs to have a relationship of his own, because he is really projecting his insecurity of not having his own relationship with Joyce. So he's projecting his anger onto his kids, trying to break up their relationship because he doesn't have his relationship. That's right. This is how I watch TV. So he's like interfering with them. He's breaking them up. He's trying to anyway. And she's like, you need to talk to them. And he's just like, he looks like she just spat in his mouth, and that's not his kink. And he's just like, oh, can't you do it for me? And he's like, this is never going to work. And I'm going, why does a fourth perspective think this isn't going to work? I really have to sit down and interview fourth perspectives. Why do you think? I asked the random fourth perspective, who I know is not watching the show. Why do they think that talking doesn't work? I really want to know this. Why do they think that talking doesn't work? Daniel, you are like fifth, sixth perspective. Dan, why do you think talking doesn't work? How do you feel about talking? Are you thinking?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you. I'm asking if you think talking works for conflict resolution. It depends on the conflict. Why?
Well, if someone pointed a gun at you and they're not going to back down, there's not much you can say, at least in my perspective.
Yeah. A gun being pointed at your head is a conflict.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But in argument with Liz, I mean, sometimes it works. Other times she's just really adamant about her point.
Because you've tried it and it does not work.
Yeah.
You've tried it. No proof of concept. Thank you. You answered my question. No proof of concept. I know exactly what that is. Was I shouting?
Yeah, you said thank you.
Oh. Thank you. No proof of concept. They try and it doesn't work. I know why. It's because they lack the skills. Fourth perspective does not have eighth perspective communication skills. That's why. Oh, that's riddle solved, but that was simple. All right. That is why they don't think talking works. Because it's a fourth perspective communication skill, not able to communicate at a eighth perspective level. They don't know how. That's why. Because for them, it really doesn't work. Interesting. They lack proof of concept because they don't know how. Fascinating. They don't know how. So when you ask a fourth, this makes sense now, because when you ask a fourth perspective or you propose a fourth perspective, talk about your feelings, explain it, talk to them, they scoff and go, you want me to talk about my feelings? which is fourth perspective talk for, yeah, I've tried that and it made everything worse. That makes so much sense about foundationals. I suddenly understand foundationals very well. Wow. Foundationals have the mindset of 4-year-olds. They haven't learned communication skills yet. They are 4-year-old mindsets trapped in a 55-year-old body. They are 3-year-old mindsets. A 3-year-old mindset is equivalent to the Dark Ages. A second perspective is a second 2-year-old perspective that is a Neolithic, that is a Byzantium mindset, a Mesopotamian mindset. A first perspective is equivalent to a 1-year-old. A 1-year-old mindset, which is equivalent to a Neolithic time period. No, they're not going to have the skills to talk. So when you sit down in your condescension, you, as in to whom it may apply, and you tell people to just talk, they can't. They don't know how. They lack the skills. You have to teach them how to talk, because they don't know how to command communication. It is their weak point. Communication is their weakness, which is why when a foundational gets angry, they're at level 1, violence and aggression. How to overcome this? It is imperative that human people evolve out of the 3rd and 4th and 5th perspective as quickly as possible. That's how. That way, by the time they're old enough to cause significant violent damage, they will already be at stage 2 of the anger stage, which is the cultivator stage. Anger has 3 stages to it: the foundational stage, the cultivator stage, and the visionary stage. The visionary stage is when change happens. It's the 3rd stage of anger. The cultivator stage is stage 2 of anger. That's when you start talking. And the foundational stage of anger is the violent and the aggression. As a result, a lot of people, cultivators, 5th and 6th perspectives, associate anger with violence because of the foundational anger stage. That's what's wrong. Maybe I'm not done with psychology yet. Maybe it needs a little bit of tweaking, but not much. They don't know how to talk. By the way, you can't remember from the other perspectives. My son is a 5th, 6th perspective. He has the ethics of a 6th perspective, but his subconscious mind has him toggling between 4 or 5. I would say a solid 5. He's a solid 5. Yeah, he's a solid 5. Now, when a person is drinking, tired, angry, they drop 2 perspectives. So when he's tired or angry, he drops to a 3rd perspective. But he's really good at managing it. Now, my daughter is a mean hangry. She becomes a total 3rd perspective when she's hangry. We're starting to catch the pattern where now when she's a miserable little asshole, I can very simply say to her, "Do you need to eat?" And it was a week straight where she'd come in and she would just be mean to me. And then 10 minutes later, she'd be eating. "I'm sorry, I was just hungry." And she did this for like a week straight. It snowballed the other day when she said, "I hate you." It's the first time my kids told me they hated me. I took it hard, real hard. And then 10 minutes later, she was eating and she's like, I'm sorry, I was just hungry. So, like, hangry is like a whole nother level of that. My daughter has found a whole nother level of hangry. It's impressive. So, but now we've learned the pattern, so we know, we literally clock it. Like, your hangry is so aggressive. We need to make sure we do preventative measures. So we have snacks now. We have things that are readily available. Literally, it's like Lizzie's hangry stash because it's like you need to better manage your food problem because she'll go from that fifth perspective down to a third perspective just because of food. And it happens with everybody. Every one of us will drop two perspectives when we're hangry, when we're tired, when we're stressed, when we have alcohol in us. We drop those two perspectives. And because my daughter's a fifth perspective, when she gets hangry, she drops to that horrible third perspective. And it's like and she's very much an aggressive. She's very much an aggressive perspective, aggressive third. So it's really fascinating to watch it all play out. So the next question that I would ask is, how do you teach fourth perspectives currently how to improve their communication skills? Communication classes. But I'm back to this again over and over again. It keeps coming back to communication. How do you teach people communication? Word definition. That's what we do in physics and philosophy. Everything starts with word definition. Becoming mindful of the words you say. It's translation. It's really a translation. You have to be fluent in emotion. Emotion speak. You have to be fluid in energy speak. And you have to be able to translate your emotions and your energy into words. Now, here's the problem. If you are a fourth perspective, I of I, that means you only speak in the fourth perspective, first person point of view. Now, that does not mean that you are talking to a fourth perspective, first person point of view. In the case of my mom, that would be my father, who is like a fifth perspective, first person point of view, and he's talking to a second perspective, first person point of view. And he doesn't know how to translate emotional speak and energy speak over to words. But then he would have to translate his words over to second perspective words. This is going to get real nasty real fast. So now you have somebody, this is why divorce happens. This is why conflict is so rampant right now, is because of the miscommunication. And we think it's just English. Oh, no, it's not. We have 12 different perspectives and 4 different points of views. That means we have 48 different combinations of one language and only per region. So if you have somebody who lives in central New York and somebody who lives in Ohio, they're also going to have a communication gap as well. So now you're looking at, first, you have emotional speak and energy speak translated over to words in your own first person point of view, perspective number, and that needs to be translated over to the second person, first person point of view in this example. So you are looking at literally 3 different translations occurring just to say one sentence. This took me a lifetime to figure out. I'm omniscient point of view. Omniscient point of view is when you can see shit happening. It's fucking cool. I can speak first person point of view. I can speak third person point of view. And I can speak omniscient point of view. Those are my fluents. I cannot speak second person point of view. I'm learning that one right now. And that is where you learn empathy. Empathy is learned at second person point of view, which is why I have struggled with empathy, is because, I did not speak first person point of view. The most of the world speaks first person point of view. Now, I, you, they, and all change meaning with every single one of these perspectives. For me, I means the self, referring to my own individual point of view. You means to whom it may apply. That's omniscient talk, though. That is, and I cannot emphasize that enough. When I say you, it means to whom it may apply. In the omniscient, in the first person point of view, you means literally, oh, it's abstract. See, I speak abstract. Whereas the rest of the world speaks concrete. Well, not the rest of the world, but foundational speak concrete. So this is another problem, is you might be looking at people who are concrete thinkers and then transferring that over into abstract thinkers. You want to save the world, Anna? Just teach people how to communicate. Translate their English for them. They need mediators. Eureka. You need mediators. You need translators. Wow. Wow. My mind is racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. I can train people, healers. This isn't healing, this is communication. How many divorces would you save? You have a bunch of people having an existential crisis, not being able to communicate. Instead of calling up a therapist, you'd call up a mediator. You'd ask the mediator, an app. I would have an app. Google Translate. But it would translate the perspectives. What perspective are you? Fourth perspective. Second perspective. You never do the dishes. Translation. You never do the dishes. You never do the dishes does not mean you'll never do the dishes. You never do the dishes. From second person point of view, second person perspective, I feel responsible for you. And I am overwhelmed because I feel responsible for everyone. That is what you never do the dishes means. But not to the fourth perspective. That's second perspective talk. You never do the dishes is literal. But to the fourth perspective, you never do the dishes literally means you never do the dishes. But that's not what they're saying. They're talking about how they feel responsible, overwhelmed. Like all the world is up to me. That's what it means. Here's another one. What did you do today? Now that's fourth perspective talk for I worked all day. It's not fair that I have to work. I hate my job. That is what did you do today actually means. But that's not what a second perspective hears, because a second perspective, what did you do today, does not mean what did you do today. It means something entirely different. What they hear is you did nothing today. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying, I hate my job. I am fucking miserable. That is what they're saying. That is what they're trying to say. One of them is speaking in metaphor, and the other is listening in literal. There it is. A literal listener and a metaphorical speaker. That is the problem. And then you throw in there the different perspectives, the different points of views. Everyone is pretty much first person point of view at this point, at this stage. So, but you're still looking at the perspectives, and you're looking at metaphor speakers versus literal listeners. And the emotional backlash is so strong with almost all of us that it overwhelms this insight, and we don't even catch it. Suddenly we're caught up in an angry defense, feeling attacked. And that's the other thing. The literal listener will feel attacked. So they will go into defend mode at a time when the metaphorical speaker is wanting comfort. Which is why they don't want to talk about their feelings. They don't need therapists. They need translators. But we're all speaking English, so everyone assumes that we're speaking English. But we're not. There is embedded language in all of that. Our language is fucking complex. Holy shit, is it complex. I'm going to go think now. I got a lot to think about. And then I got my morning show. Thank you so much for your audience. And may the kindest of words always find you.